Hello all, welcome to Homeschool, and we are with the chapter How Do Organisms Reproduce, isn't it? And today we are going to start the sexual reproduction. In the sexual reproduction, as I told you, we have to discuss sexual reproduction in plants as well as sexual reproduction in humans, isn't it? So in our previous videos, we have discussed many things about asexual reproduction, isn't it? Fine. Say coming to the topic of sexual reproduction, as we all know its definition and various points, sexual reproduction includes two parents, isn't it? Two individuals are necessary. That is one male and the other one is female. Right? And the male one always produces very specialized cells called germ cells, male germ cells. In a similar way, female individual also produces female germ cells, isn't it? So male germ cells will contain certain amount of DNA. Female germ cells contain a certain amount of DNA. You know, when these cells combine with each other, a new individual starts appearing. A new individual takes a life, isn't it? So such a reproduction where a male individual and female individuals are there, and when they combine, you get a new life or a new individual. So that is what we mean by sexual reproduction. Okay, so before we go for the sexual reproduction in plants, let us try to recall or try to analyze few basics that you must know. The few words whose meaning is compulsorily required to understand, isn't it? So those terms let us try to recall and revise. So sexual reproduction includes a male, right, and female. And you know, male will have a very specialized organ in him, isn't it? And that is what we call reproductive organ, right? Male has an organ in his body, or it may be a plant body. Okay, and such a specialized organ which is meant for reproduction is called reproductive organ. Okay, so similarly, there is an organ specially meant for reproduction, and such an organ is there in female also. So you have a female reproductive organ also. Okay, so both of them have these specialized organs in them, and these organs, you know, at certain age or certain level, they produce a specialized cells called germ cells. Okay, so in male you will find the production of male germ cell. Okay, similarly in the female you will find the production of female germ cells. So when they combine, you get a new life getting started, that is zygote. Initially, you will have a new cell formed called zygote. Okay, and you know, this process, the fusion of male germ cell with female germ cell is called fertilization. Very important word that you have to remember here is fertilization. Okay, so fusion of male germ cell with the female germ cell is called fertilization. So after fertilization, you actually get a single cell structure where you have half the amount of father DNA and half the amount of mother DNA. Okay, so male germ cell contains father DNA, Female germ cell contain mother DNA. So when these cells combine, actually their DNAs also will combine. So you get a single cell structure which includes the DNA of male as well as the DNA of female. Okay, so such a combination, that process we will call it as fertilization. So after the fertilization, you will get zygote, a single celled structure. This again divides and you get a multicellular structure called embryo. Okay, so this is what the basic idea you should have in your mind before we go for studying reproduction in plants as well as humans. Okay, this common thing. It may be a plant, you know, it has its own male reproductive organ and female reproductive organ will be there. They create certain specialized cells, we call them as germ cells. Okay, and when they combine, such a combination of female germ cell and a male germ cell is called fertilization, and what results in a fertilization? Zygote formation. Okay, so you should understand the meaning of the zygote. So what is zygote here? Whenever a male germ cell combines with a female germ cell, whatever you get, a single cell structure which is a new life, completely a new life generates from this particular cell, which we call it as zygote. And what is the meaning of fertilization? Fusion of male germ cell with a female germ cell. Okay, so where are these germ cells present, guys? They are present in the respective reproductive organs. Male germ cells are present in male reproductive organ. Female germ cells are present in female reproductive organ. Okay, and these germ cells are called with the special names in case of plants as well as animals. Okay, anyway, so this is what the basic idea. And next question that I will put for you is, what are the advantages? What are the advantages of sexual reproduction? Sexual reproduction over asexual reproduction. Okay, you have completely studied asexual reproduction, different types of asexual reproduction, isn't it, in the previous videos. So now, definitely, sexual reproduction has more advantages. Okay, so what are the advantages that you see out of sexual reproduction? For this, just try to think of asexual reproduction. See, there is a single parent. Single parent itself divides and it gives a daughter cells, new individual. And the new individual exactly looks like the parent. 100% the new individual has the characters and the features similar to the parent only. There is no difference between the parent and the daughter cell. There is no concept called variation, isn't it? Okay, but in the sexual reproduction, definitely in the starting video I told you actually what happens in the male germ cell is, say, actually the DNA of the male germ cell gets copied. Okay, and here also the DNA of mother gets copied. So copies will form a cell, they combine and you get a zygote. Okay, and during the copying of DNA, there are certain characters from the parents that get passed, and there are certain characters which is very much different from the parent also can be observed in the new individual. Yes or no? So that means inheritance can be observed in sexual reproduction. At the same time, variation can also be observed in the sexual reproduction. Okay, so you have completely understood the words of the inheritance and variation in my first video, right? So what is the answer you will write here is inheritance. Inheritance, that means the transmission of characters can be possible in sexual reproduction, as well as variation can also be possible in sexual reproduction. So what is the uses of variation? Everything we have already discussed. So now I am not going in detail with the words called inheritance and variation. So this is the main advantage of sexual reproduction. Yeah, fine. And now let us quickly go to the topic sexual reproduction in plants. Guys, Sexual reproduction in plants. Usually we are going to discuss the reproduction in angiosperms. So what do you mean by angiosperms? They are much higher plants, isn't it? Much advanced plant varieties are angiosperms. In other words, we can also call them as flowering plants. Flowering plants, the plants which can produce flowers, are regarded as much advanced and recent varieties of plant bodies. So such variety is angiosperms, right? And usually if you take a plant or a tree, the flower is the reproductive organ. Okay, so try to remember, flower is called reproductive organ in a plant. Okay, the entire reproduction takes place in an organ called flower. So that's why it is called reproductive organ. Okay, fine. And now let us study the parts of a flower. Parts of flower. Okay, you can see there is a flower, longitudinal section of flower drawn on a board. What do you mean by longitudinal section of a flower? Say for example, if this is a flower, this part longitudinally, if I cut, this longitudinally I have cut. This is what we call longitudinal section of a flower. So this is the flower. See, the picture that I have drawn on the board is actually a China rose. Okay, very simple flower. So you have different parts here. Firstly, I will start naming the parts one by one. The first part here is sepals. Okay, so what do you mean by sepals? See, these guys are called sepals. And this is a stalk. Say I have a colorful flower here. See, this is the colorful flower that I have got. This is stalk. We call this portion as stalk. And these green color things are there now here. This is what we call sepals. Okay. And the next part of a flower is petals. Colorful area of a flower. See, this is what? This colorful thing. This is what we call petals. Okay. Fine. So here, this is a petal. Actually, the group of sepals is called calyx. If you have a group of sepals, we call with the term calyx. That means, say this, each one, if you take a single thing, this is what I call sepal. This is one sepal, this is one sepal, this is another sepal. But there are so many sepals combined together to form one particular perfect structure, isn't it? So the whole thing, a group of or a collection of the entire sepals is what we call calyx. Okay, so in a similar way, group of petals is called corolla. Okay, so each thing, if I say, I can call it as petal, but the whole group, this full area, if I want to call, I can call it as corolla. So I say the whole corolla, in the sense the whole area. Okay, if I want to talk about a single thing, then I will say petal. Okay, so that is what the difference between sepal and calyx, petal and corolla. Fine. And the next and important organ of a flower is stamens. Okay, so stamens are the male reproductive part. Okay, of a flower is called stamen. Okay, so this flower, here you can clearly able to differentiate. Say these guys, the green color guys which have a small knobs on them, this is what we call stamens. Say in a picture, these things. Okay, so these things are called stamens. Okay, so if I have to draw one stamen separately, say I will draw one stamen separately, it looks like this. Okay, it looks like this. This part, the longest part is there. This longest part is called filament. This is called filament. And you know, yellow color part, usually the topmost knob-like structure is, you know, that is a yellow color part, right? Powdery part. You will have a powdery substance on them. That is called anther. So, the male reproductive part is having two, again it is divided into two parts. One is a long filament. On top of a filament, you have the main thing called anther. Okay, fine. And usually, this anther will have a powdery substance present in it. Okay, so this powdery substance is called pollen grains. Pollen grains. Okay, so this is what we call pollen grains, and pollen grains contain the male germ cells. Clear, everybody? So just you have to remember all these things. So stamen is made up of a filament and anther, or you can say stamen contains filament and anther. You know, anther contains so-called pollen grains. Pollen grains, okay, and these pollen grain contains male germ cells. Male germ cells, okay. So I can show it in this flower. See here, these yellow color thing, white color. See, if I pluck this, I am plucking one of them. You know, this is what. See. This yellow color substance is what we will call pollen grains. Okay. See, so many things you can see. No, this white color thread-like thing is there. No, this is what we call filament. Okay. On top of it, that structure is anther. Anther has so many small powdery substance. You know, that is what we call pollen grains. Inside a pollen grain, you will find male germ cells. Okay, so this is all about the male reproductive part of a flower, that is stamens. Okay, and next we will talk about the fourth part of a flower, that is pistil. Okay, so pistil is what? The female reproductive part. Female reproductive part of a flower. Okay, is called pistil, right? And you know the whole thing. Observe the picture on a board. See the whole thing. This whole thing we will call it as pistil. So actually, pistil has a knob-like structure at the bottom. This is what we call ovary. Okay, and you know there is a tube-like structure in the middle. This is called style. And at the top, you have one more bulged structure that is called stigma. Stigma. Okay. So all together we will call it as pistil. All together we call it as pistil or carpel. It can also be called with the name carpel. Okay. And now let us try to study the female reproductive part. Right? So in the middle you have an ovary, right? And a small stem over here and a bulged structure. Okay? So this is what we call stigma, and this is style, and this is ovary. Okay? And ovary contains one more structure, and this is what we call ovule. Okay? Got to know? So what I can say is ovary. Write down the point here. Ovary has ovule, okay, and ovule contains female germ cell. Female germ cell, okay. Female germ cell is also called with the term egg. Clear? So inside the ovary, you have so-called ovule. Inside the ovule, you will find the female germ cell, which is also called as egg. Okay, say here, coming to this flower, as I already told you, this things. There are many stamens. You see, there are many stamens, but the pistil is only one, guys. Okay, see this in the middle, this long one. Down there is a bulged structure, that is ovary, and this longer one we call it as style. And at the top, you see the tip. Okay, it is slightly bulged, and this is what we call stigma. Okay, so this is about female reproductive part of a flower. Okay, and if you see in this flower, see a long stalk is there, and to this long stalk itself stamens are attached. You know, stigma and style is also present. There are so many stigmas here. Okay, the pink color things you can observe, that is stigma. And you know, there is a stalk to the stigma, that is what style. Okay, ovary is present at the deep down. Okay, it's a common thing, and to that longest passage only there are so many stamens, right? So anyway, this is one kind of a flower, right? And this is another kind of a flower. Here actually the stamens are separately present. There is no connection between, you know, stamen and stigma and style, isn't it? So stamens are there, filament, anther. Okay, and at the center you have a longest style and stigma. Deep down in the bottom you will find ovary. Okay, so this is what the basic structure of a flower, which contains male reproductive organ or part is stamen, and female reproductive organ is pistil or carpel. Okay, so you should definitely have an idea about stamen. Stamen is again made up of filament and anther. Anther contains pollen grains. Pollen grains contain male germ cell. Okay, so in the female part, you know, female reproductive part has ovary, style, stigma. Ovary has ovule. Ovule has an egg cell, which is nothing but female germ cell. Okay, fine. And these are the four parts of a flower. Got to know the importance of stamens, got to know the importance of pistil. And now what is the use of sepals, guys? Sepals are for the protection purpose. Okay, so they protect the male reproductive and female reproductive organ. This lower, this green part, the sepals, they actually protect. They protect what? Stamens as well as pistil. Okay, and what is the use of petals here? Petals actually attract insects. They attract insects, you know, for the process called pollination. For pollination, you will understand the meaning of the word pollination. All this you will come to know little later. You will have to wait for it. Got it? Just for the attraction sake, the petals are there in a flower in different colors. Now, let us try to understand two types of flowers. There are actually two types of flowers. The two types of flowers are unisexual flower, very important for examination point of view. Okay, unisexual flower, and the other type is bisexual flower. Okay, so what do you mean by unisexual flower? Unisexual flower in the sense only one reproductive organ would be there in a flower. Okay, so the flower which contains or which has only one reproductive organ, one reproductive part. Okay, either stamen would be there or, you know, pistil would be there. Only one would be there. Both will not be there in a flower. Coming to the bisexual flower, this is the flower which has, you can write flower which has both reproductive parts. Both reproductive parts. Okay, so you would find both stamens as well as pistil in a same flower. Okay, so in other words, what I can write? Both stamens and pistil in same flower. Same flower. Such a flower is called bisexual flower. For that, the example is hibiscus. In other words, China rose, okay, mustard flower, many would be there, okay. And coming to the unisexual flower, say, as I already told you, only stamens would be there or pistil would be there, okay. So for such a flower, you can give example as papaya flowers, watermelon, okay, etc. And I can show here, say this is the flower where you have stamens and pistil in a same flower. Pistil is here at the center and many stamens are surrounded around the pistil, isn't it? So this is an example for unisexual or bisexual. Definitely this flower is an example for bisexual category, okay. And coming to one more colorful flower. So here also you can see here the yellow color stuffs. These are actually anthers. Anthers are there in the sense, definitely they are stamens. And the pink color things, there are so many stigmas, okay. Many pistils are there, many stamens are there. But stamens and pistil are there in a same flower. So this is also an example for bisexual flower, okay. Coming to the unisexual flower. See, this is a flower of papaya, okay. Now I will remove all these petals because I wanted to see whether it is bisexual or unisexual. So you alone can observe here. Yes, I removed all the petals and observe here. Do you have both stamens and pistil here? Pistil in the sense a longer thing, which should have a bulged area, isn't it? So pistil is not there. Only stamens are there. Yes or no? Only stamens are there. All these are only stamens, guys. Okay? Say, I will just open it like this. See, I opened the flower. See, you can observe here. See, only one reproductive organ is there, that is stamens. So that means it's a male flower. Okay, male flower of papaya. You have only stamens. There is no pistil. Okay, so such a flower where you find only one reproductive organ, either stamen or pistil. Okay, so such a flower we will call it as a unisexual flower. Clear? So these are the two different types of flower. Fine. And now let us try to study the steps of reproduction. Let us now see how a new plant generates and what is going on with the stamens and pistil. Okay. So take down steps of reproduction. Each and every step let us study in detail. First, note it down all the steps. The first step is pollination. Okay. Second one is fertilization. Fertilization. I have already told you the meaning of the word fertilization, isn't it? It is the fusion of male germ cell and female germ cell. Let us see how they can fuse in the flower. And the third one is seed formation. Seed formation. This is very important. And the fourth one, seed germination or just germination. Okay. So these are the 4 steps that you will find it under the plant reproduction. Let us study one by one in detail. Coming to pollination. So it's very simple. Pollination is nothing but transfer of pollen grains. Where are the pollen grains present, guys? Pollen grains are present in anther. Anther is one of the part of stamen, isn't it? Stamen is the male reproductive organ. Anther, in the anther you have pollen grains. Okay, pollen grains carry what? Male germ cell, I said. So the transfer of pollen grains from stamens to stigma of pistil. Stigma of pistil is called pollination. is called pollination. Clear? Now you got in the meaning of the word pollination. See, male germ cells are here on the anther, isn't it? It is there in the pollen grain. So, and where is the egg, guys? Egg is there in the pistil, ovary. Okay, in the ovary, egg is there. See, these male germs should reach to the ovary. To reach to this point, first these guys have to transfer to stigma, isn't it? So that transfer of pollen grains from stamens to stigma is called pollination. Okay, and now how will this transfer takes place? Who will carry out the pollen grains from anther to stigma? It is insects or wind or water. Okay, so petals are there to attract the insects. Insect have to come because insect is the one which can carry the pollen grains from anther to stigma, isn't it? Say for example, see, anther is here, right? Stigma is here. Say the pollen grains have to travel from this area to this area. So how will they travel? It may be through wind or water or by insects. Okay. Say who will attract the insects? The petals attract the insects. Clear? And here the insects, water, wind is called pollinating agents. Okay. Say another point you can write under pollination is pollination occurs with the help of pollinating agents. So what are the pollinating agents here? The pollinating agents are the guys which are actually taking the pollen grains from stamens to stigma of pistil. Okay, so those guys are wind. It can happen through wind, or it can happen through water, or it can happen through insects. Okay, so here wind, water, insects are called pollinating agents. Okay, and there are two types of pollination. Remember, this is very important for examination point of view. There are two types of pollination. Okay, and the first one is self-pollination, and the other one is cross-pollination. So what do you mean by a self-pollination? Transfer of pollen grains to stigma takes place in the same flower. See here, in the same flower, you have stamens as well as, the pistil. Okay, so pollen grains can be transferred from the anther of a stamen to stigma of the pistil in the same flower. Okay, since both the reproductive organs are there in the same flower, the transfer also can happen in the same flower. So such a pollination is called self-pollination. Okay, so what do you write here? Transfer of pollen grains from anther to stigma occur in same flower or takes place in same flower. Okay, so usually self-pollination is seen in bisexual flower, isn't it? Bisexual flower is a flower where you find both stamens and the pistil, right, in the same flower. So in such a flower you can able to see the pollination happening in a same flower. So what do you mean by cross-pollination? Transfer of pollen grains occur from one flower to another flower. Okay, and it can be seen in unisexual flowers. Okay, say just now I have shown you the papaya flower, where you have only the stamens. Okay, there is no pistil here. So where is the egg? Where is the female germ cell? In another flower maybe. So the stamen is only here, right? So the pollen grains have to travel from this flower to the female flower which had the ovary as well as the egg. Okay, so this transfer of the pollen grains from one flower to another flower is called the cross pollination. So such a pollination is always seen in unisexual flowers, because unisexual flowers will have only one reproductive part, either stamen or pistil, isn't it? So the definition of self-pollination and cross-pollination is very, 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 very important. Okay, fine. So this is all about the pollination. Now let us try to study about the fertilization. Fertilization, as I already told its meaning, it is nothing but fusion of male germ cell and a female germ cell. Okay, so now see here, after pollination, the pollen grains are there in the stigma area, and where is the female germ cell? Pollen grain contains the mature male germ cell, okay, which is waiting to meet the female germ cell. Where is the female germ cell present, guys? Here is the female germ cell present. So the male germ cell, how will they reach to the female germ cell? Female germ cell is there inside the ovary. Inside the ovary there is ovule. Inside the ovule there is female germ cell, highly protected. Okay, and pollen grain is sitting here on the stigma. Okay, pollen grain has a male germ cell. So that male germ cell should reach to the female germ cell. So that is what we are going to learn here. So how does a male germ cell reaches a female germ cell? By the germination of pollen grain, or by the formation of pollen tube. So what we are going to learn now? Germination of pollen grain, okay, or formation of pollen tube. What actually happens here is, let me show it through a picture. Say this is our ovary, right? Say ovary, style, stigma. Okay, so imagine our pollen grain is coming and sitting here, okay, carrying the male germ cell, right? And inside the ovary you actually have ovule. You will find the ovule. Let me draw it. Yeah, fine, something like this. Okay, and here the egg is there. This is what your egg. Okay, and this is what your female germ cell actually. This is female germ cell. Okay, and here one more nuclei is there, and these are different parts of the egg. Don't worry about this. So this is your ovary, this is your ovule. Okay, inside the ovule you have an egg, and pollen grain is there. What happens is, in the ovary you have certain structures. See, I'll share the structure. These structures are actually called as synergids. Anyway, you no need to remember the name here. Just telling you the logic. These are called synergids. Synergids will produce a kind of chemicals. Those chemicals will attract the pollen grain. Okay, so those chemicals are responsible to form a tube-like structure. Pollen grain will grow into a tube. A tube is formed from a pollen grain and it will reach here. Okay, got to know? And how the tube is getting produced? It is, with the help of synergids. Synergids are there in the Excel. So they will come to know that the pollen is coming and sitting there. So synergids will try to attract that pollen grain so that the pollen grain will form. There are certain chemicals produced here. These chemicals will stimulate the chemicals that are there in pollen grain. So those chemicals are responsible for the extension of the skin, that is the cell membrane of pollen grain. So a long tube is produced, till the ovary, this is your main egg cell, right? So with this, this pollen grain now has a male germ cell. This is your male germ cell, okay? Male germ cell, and this is the female germ cell. Female germ cell, and this is pollen tube. Pollen tube. Okay, so like this, a tube-like structure is formed and it gets connects to the ovule. Straight away it meets, male germ cell travels through the tube and it meets the egg, that is, female germ cell. So this is what we call it as germination of pollen grain. So what you can write here is pollen grain produces or extends. I can say pollen grain extends into tube-like structure that connects to ovule. Okay, so male germ cell reaches female germ cell, okay, through pollen tube, okay. So once the male germ cell reaches the female germ cell, what happens, guys? Fertilization occurs. Okay. So next point what I can write is fusion of male germ cell with female germ cell. In other words, it can be called as egg. Okay. To form a zygote. Zygote is what? The baby cell, okay, which is taking into a new life, is called fertilization. Okay. So this is what we mean by fertilization. So initially what happens in a fertilization, guys? First thing that happens is germination of pollen grain. I can say this itself, this is one of the steps in fertilization, that's it, nothing else. Okay, so the first step is what? After pollination, it is coming and sitting here, along to grows till the female germ cell. That is the first step. Next step is male cell travels through the tube and it meets the egg. Both of them combine and you get one big cell. That is what we call zygote. Okay, and what happens to the zygote? Zygote further divides to form embryo. Okay, so if this is a zygote, it has its own nucleus and various cell apparatus. Okay, it goes on, divides. One cell divides into two cells again divides into 4 cells, like that. Multiplication of cells happens initially, and that group of cells together we call it as embryo. Okay, and later what happens is, let us see that in the seed formation. Okay, let us see the third step, that is seed formation. Okay, what happens in seed formation is, say you now have an idea, that is male germ cell combined with female germ cell, and you got zygote. Okay, and zygote again divided and you got embryo. you got embryo. Okay, see here, you know, this fusion occurred here in this part, and the whole part is a zygote, or again it is further divided, and you call it as embryo. Okay, and now remaining part of the ovule is there. No, you know, this much is the ovule, still it is there, and here the fusion occurred and embryo formation took place. Here embryo is there. Now living cell, a new plant must originate from this guy, so it is there. Okay, and the ovule part, remaining ovule part is there, no, that will be converted into seed. Okay, remember here what is happening here. Ovule gets converted into seed. Okay, so inside a seed you actually have embryo. Clear? So the whole ovule part is there, no, this is entirely converted into that hard seed. So inside the seed you have this living embryo. Clear? So that seed is actually protecting the embryo. Embryo is a very delicate cells, right? So this embryo is getting protected by ovule. So ovule is converting into seed, guys. Okay, and remaining ovary is there. The entire thing is ovary, right? So ovary is getting converted into fruit. So ovary converts into fruit that you can eat. It is an edible part. Yes or no? So always fruit is there. The eatable part, whatever is there in a fruit, you know, that is what actually ovary. Ovary converted into fruit. Inside a fruit you have a seed. So what is that seed actually? Seed is nothing but the ovule part which is there in the ovary. Okay, and inside a seed there are a group of very minute celled structure called embryo. From that embryo a new plant has to grow. Okay, so understood the seed formation. So embryo is there, right? Male gamete combined with female gamete, nothing but germ cells. You got a zygote divided, you got embryo, and around the embryo you have a ovule structure. Ovule has converted into seed, okay, and later the entire ovary has converted into fruit. And what happens to the stigma, remaining stamens, sepals, say entire thing? Imagine in this flower, the fertilization occurred. Slowly the ovule converted into seed. The entire ovary is getting converted into fruit. So what happens to these petals, sepals and all? They will fall off. Okay, they will get dried up and they will fall onto the ground. Okay, so this is how a fruit is formed. So inside a fruit, what is that fruit? Ovary. Okay, inside a fruit you have a seed. What is that seed? Ovule. Inside a seed you have a living tissue, that is what we call embryo. Okay, and now let us see from a seed how you will get one more new plant. That step is called as germination, the last and final step. Okay, so let us talk about the fourth step, that is germination. Germination. Okay, what do you mean by germination? Formation of seedling. Seedling in the sense sapling, seedling or a new plant from seed at favorable conditions. At favorable conditions, only when the conditions are favorable, seeds are there. Say you collect the seed, you will keep it for drying and then you will sow it in a soil, you pour it water, all conditions have to be favorable. Okay, only then a new plant can come out from a seed. So such a process or step is called germination. Okay, fine. So normally what happens is, guys, one extra thing I'll tell you. Anyway, this is not there for the examination. Just think of, here there is an embryo. Okay, embryo is formed here. Okay, and you see in the ovule there are two cells here. There are two nuclei here. Okay, and you know, you don't have one male germ cell. You will have one more male germ cell. Okay, so altogether 2 germ cells or 3 germ cells would be coming from single pollen grain, guys. Okay, say one more germ cell, no doubt it will combine with the main egg cell, and embryo is getting formed. Another male germ cell is there, no, that actually combines with this particular nuclei present in the ovule. Okay, and it leads to the formation of endosperm. Okay, we call it as endosperm. So embryo is associated with endosperm. Before even formation of embryo, endosperm formation takes place, guys. So here fertilization is actually called as double fertilization. What do you mean by double fertilization? Two fusions are happening here. One fusion is male germ cells are combining with the main female germ cell, zygote formation, embryo formation taking place. Another fusion is what? Another male germ cell is combining with nuclei present in the ovule. Okay, and that is leading to the formation of endosperm. Okay, and what is the duty of endosperm? Endosperm is giving a food to the embryo. Embryo is a living tissue. Okay, from the living tissue a new plant has to come. It's a living cell, guys. It needs food. So who is giving a food inside? Inside a seed, the embryo is there. Okay, how will it get food? It will get food from endosperm. Okay, so endosperm is fully rich with the nutrients. So endosperm, through the endosperm, the embryo is taking the food. Okay, and that particular endosperm later it will get converted into cotyledons. Say for example, if this is a seed, yes, if this is some seed, if you open the seed, what you would find is, you know, a small, this is what your main small, this thing, like if it germinates, initially what happens is, you know, like this is what we call cotyledons. These structures are called cotyledons. Okay, these endosperm, at the initial stage endosperm has formed, you know, endosperm only, it grows and it develops into cotyledons. So from cotyledons is nothing but it's a food storage, that's it. Okay, food storage, food is stored in this cotyledons. So these food can be utilized by your germinating plant, right? It's an embryo. Okay, and this part is there, no, this part is actually called as plumule. Okay, the topper part, if you open the seed, you know, during germination, this is how it looks, and this part, the bottom part, is actually called as radicle. So what is plumule? Actually the future shoot, the plant body, topmost part. Okay, radicle is nothing but future root system will go from radical part. Okay, so if I put one small plant, a small sapling, okay, so this is what the future shoot and this is what the future root. Okay, see, this is how actually germination takes place from a seed. Okay, seed contains embryo. Embryo is associated with endosperm. Okay, the moment after few days, the endosperm gets converted into cotyledon. Okay, so cotyledon's duty is very important to understand. It is just a food storage. It keeps giving food to the growing embryo. Embryo has to grow. You know, initially it grows into a small topper part and a bottom part. See, the topmost part is what? Plumule. It will grow into the future shoot, and bottommost part is called as radicle. It will grow into a future root. Okay, so this is how the germination of seed can occur. Okay, say and don't worry if you are getting confused with the double fertilization and all, it's not necessary. Just to tell how the cotyledons are formed, I told you about endosperm. Okay, so actually what is happening during fertilization, one more fusion is happening, that is with one more male germ cell and the nuclei part of the ovule, and you know that is for food storage. Okay, endosperm, later it gets converted into cotyledon. Okay, so plumule, Radicle. So the naming is very important, guys. This is what the germination of seed pictorically I am showing you. And when you open it, the topper part is what plumule, and this is what radicle. So this labeling and their importance, and how does a plumule grow into, it will grow into future shoot, and radicle will grow into future root. Okay, and these are cotyledons. So that's all about the reproduction in plants. Okay, and straight away there can be a question like explain the steps of germination. If they ask you the steps of germination, you should mention right from pollination. Say what happens germination to takes place. Yes, from the starting you have to mention. First thing you have to mention is pollination. Pollination is nothing but transfer of pollen grains from anther to stigma, all that you have to tell. After that you should tell about the growth of pollen tube. After that fertilization. After that how a seed is getting formed, and later you have to write what do you mean by germination. Okay, so these are the steps you have to mention if sexual reproduction of flower is asked, or if they ask you how a seed is getting formed. If they ask it for 3 marks, you know, not just this point, you have to mention right from pollination onwards. Actually, that is the first step, no, for the next germination of a seed, for the formation of new plant, isn't it? So you have to mention all the steps. And in each and every step, questions can be asked, like what is the differences between self-pollination and cross-pollination? Differences between unisexual flower, bisexual flower. What do you mean by fertilization? Okay, and from which part the seed is formed, right? Seed is formed from ovule. Inside a seed, you actually have embryo. Okay, fine. And fruit part is formed from what, guys? Ovary. And what happens to the petals, sepals and all? Once the seed has formed, they will get dried and they will fall off on the ground. You know, so these are the points that you have to remember carefully. So with this, I complete sexual reproduction in plants. So in my next video, we will meet up with the sexual reproduction in human beings. Okay, till then, keep revising a concept. If you like our video, please like, share and subscribe our channel to learn the concepts in an easier way and in a detailed way. Thank you.